Hi, I'm Jim Ward of the Middle Country Public Library, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode in our History Bites series. Today we will discuss the Siege of Yorktown during the Revolutionary War, which led to the surrender of the British and the independence of the United States. In the summer of 1780, 5,500 French troops, with Comte de Rochambeau at the helm, landed in Newport, Rhode Island to aid the Americans. At the time, British forces were fighting on two fronts, with General Henry Clinton occupying New York City and Cornwallis, who had already captured Charleston and Savannah in South Carolina. General George Washington and his Continental Army had a decision to make in the spring of 1781. They could strike a decisive blow to the British in New York City or aim for the South in Yorktown, Virginia, where General Charles Lord Cornwallis's troops were garrisoned. Washington and his French ally, Lieutenant General Comte de Rochambeau, bet on the South, where they were assured critical naval support from a French fleet commanded by Admiral Comte de Grasse. On September 5th, while the Allied army was still en route, the French fleet guarded the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. The Royal Navy, attempting to sail up the bay to Cornwallis, was met by French warships at the mouth of the Chesapeake. In this encounter, called the Battle of the Capes, the British fleet was soundly defeated and forced to abandon Cornwallis's army at Yorktown. By mid-September 1781, Washington and Rochambeau arrived in Williamsburg, Virginia, 13 miles from the tobacco port of Yorktown, where Cornwallis's men had built a defense of 10 small forts, also known as redoubts, with artillery batteries and connecting trenches. In response, Cornwallis asked Clinton for the aid, and the general promised him a fleet of 5,000 British soldiers that would set sail from New York to Yorktown. With a small force left in New York, about 2,500 Americans and 4,000 French soldiers, facing some 8,000 British troops, began digging their own trenches 800 yards from the British and started a nearly week-long artillery assault on the enemy on October 9th. A new parallel trench 400 yards closer to the British lines was ordered by Washington on October 11th, but completing it would entail taking out the British redoubts number 9 and number 10. The attack on redoubt number 9 would be undertaken by French troops, while the number 10 siege would be led by Colonel Alexander Hamilton. The founding father wasn't the top pick of Major General Marquis de Lafayette for the job, but Hamilton, who wanted to improve his reputation by proving himself on the battlefield, talked Washington into it. Washington ordered the use of bayonets rather than pounding them slowly into submission with cannon. On a moonless night, after firing incessant artillery to weaken British defenses, American and French forces prepared a surprise assault on redoubts number 9 and 10. To maintain stealth, soldiers did not load or prime their weapons. The password for the operation was Rochambeau, which the Americans translated as "Rush on, boys." The assault commenced with a diversionary attack on a redoubt further to the north of Yorktown at 6:30 p.m., giving the appearance that the town itself was to be stormed. Then, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton's force, consisting of a detachment of 400 of his light infantry, assaulted redoubt number 10 with bayonets fixed and muskets unloaded. To prevent the British defenders from escaping the coming onslaught, Lieutenant Colonel John Laurens' troops covered the rear of the redoubt. The French simultaneously assaulted redoubt number 9, and after an equally fierce firefight, wrested control from the British. Cornwallis's position was untenable as the Franco-American alliance had artillery on 3 of his sides, with additional new pieces positioned in redoubts number 9 and 10 after their fall. In a last-ditch effort, Cornwallis ordered a futile counterattack on October 15th, which failed miserably. Of his 400 infantrymen, Hamilton lost just 9 in the attack, with some 30 wounded, while the 400 French-led troops lost 27 men, with 109 wounded. Surrounded by enemy fire and blocked from receiving aid by the French fleet that had arrived in the Chesapeake Bay, Cornwallis was trapped. The successful siege allowed the Allies to complete the second parallel trench and, quote, snuffed out the remains of resistance among the British, end quote. In a final effort on October 16th, Cornwallis attempted a nighttime sea evacuation, but he was stopped by a storm. On the morning of October 19th, the British sent forward a red-coated drummer boy, followed by an officer waving a white handkerchief to the parapet. All guns fell silent. Cornwallis had surrendered. Either ill, as he claimed, or simply humiliated, Cornwallis did not participate in the actual surrender, having delegated that task to Brigadier General Charles O'Hara. The total number of British prisoners taken was about 8,000, along with 240 guns. When news of Cornwallis's surrender reached London on November 25th, the Prime Minister, Lord North, declared, "Oh God, it is all over. It is all over." On March 5th, 1782, Parliament passed a bill authorizing the government to make peace with America. Lord North resigned 15 days later. The British still had the 30,000 men in North America occupying the seaports of New York, Charleston, and Savannah. But the demoralizing loss at Yorktown diminished the British will to continue the fight against the rebels. On September 3, 1783, the Revolutionary War came to an official end with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. Thank you all for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, click like, and if you watched on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time.